what's the point of having all the money you've made and all the money in the world if you can't celebrate it? Not only does celebrating your successes affect your overall positivity and mentality, it works wonders in uplifting your overall wealth too. And Chirag, so let's start with really defining, even for you, what does celebrating life mean to you?
I think celebrating is really a moment in time where you reflect on certain things that you've achieved. I think it's a point where you can sort of take some time to think about the goals that you have set yourself and how you've met them, and re-establish that link internally that builds your confidence and builds up a sense of pride in what you've done and what you're capable of.
Yeah, and I think, that's really important of that acknowledgement for your own self. We're so quick to keep moving up that, be it corporate ladder or just keep moving up the success of life, that we just don't stop to smell the roses, as some would say.
I think the problem that most of us suffer is we don't celebrate enough. So we set our goals, and our goals can be like, okay, I must get promoted. Well, that could take 5 years, even if you're on track. Of course, there's lots of little steps on the way to that we can also be celebrating, and they're enormously inspiring and confidence boosting. That without which I think people get demotivated and think, oh, I'm never going to get there, and it's never going to happen, and that can let you down.
So it really becomes part of the whole success process.
That's right. I think large successes are an accumulation of small successes building up on each other, rather than just this one great big bang.
I love that saying when they say big shots are just little shots who keep shooting.
I've not heard that one before. It's great.
Yeah. And tell us about sort of why do you think it's so important to do this step and to celebrate like this and celebrate like our successes on the way?
I think if we don't celebrate, life can be really quite depressing, really, because what is the opposite of celebration is when we don't hit our goals and when we don't achieve. And the act of celebrating reminds us that we can do the things that we set out to achieve. Not always everything, not all the time, but that we have some self-worth, that we are good at, we do have some skills, and we are good at certain things. And that's really important for us, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is for us to be happy. What makes us happy is knowing that we're good at something, knowing that people love us, we love people, and I think to that extent, that whole act of taking the time to acknowledge that helps with our happiness. And
you talked about sort of with families as well and so on, and how important do you think that is then, to sort of include those successes and sharing those stories, celebrating with families?
I think it's critical. I think sharing with friends and family is celebration. Without it, it doesn't have any. It doesn't have the same. It's almost dry. It's almost in a vacuum. It doesn't have any meaning. I'll tell you a funny anecdote, but I never play golf on my own, ever. And the reason is because I'm worried that the day I play golf on my own is the day I'll get a hole-in-one. I've never had a hole-in-one, but the worst thing that could possibly happen to me would be to have a hole-in-one when I'm playing golf on my own.
They probably wouldn't believe you, would they?
Well, exactly. There'd be no. I mean, it would be the most incredible moment. I'd probably only ever have one hole-in-one in my life on a golf course, and I do not, to not have anybody to tell other people about it, to record the moment in history, to acknowledge it, is so scary that I actually won't play golf on my own. So I think celebration doesn't have any meaning if it isn't the point of actually being with friends and family, who, bear in mind also that these are the people that have suffered with you, have supported you, have encouraged you,
laughed,
been there for you, laughed with you. They've been there with you through that journey. They have a right too to also be there to see you succeed. And I think also on another side, it's also very inspirational for them. So you know, by celebrating with others, you give them exposure to the fact that, oh wow, you know, he did it, and and there was times there that I really didn't think he would do it, and they can self-reflect on that and think, hey, if he could do it, I could do it. It may be a
and you said
feeling.
about that waiting. It's like sometimes some goals can be so far into the future, and that by not celebrating, you're not really giving yourself that motivation, that personal inspiration, as well as to others as well, to actually get you there quicker.
I think if you read these stories about these great explorers, you know, these guys that went to like the North Pole, or they climb Everest and all this kind of stuff. If you read their stories, they to us it's just, oh, you're climbing Everest, but they break down their journey into minute celebrations and targets and celebrations and achievements. All the way through, even down to saying, well, we must walk three miles every day, irrespective of the weather. And then, you know, they push themselves to do that, and then say, wow, yes, we did it, we hit our target. And that's really the same thing that you said about the small shots and the big shots.
Yeah. Well, let's bring it down back to sort of the money side and finance side. I mean, give us some examples of like how we could celebrate life, and does it become expensive almost to then achieve our goals?
So you've touched on one of my sort of favourite topics there, really, because I think a lot of people misunderstand what celebration means to them, or how they enjoy celebrating. People look on the streets and they say, oh, you know, they see a nice meal, or maybe a nice car, a nice boat, and think, oh yes, that. If I could have, you know, when I hit my goal, I'm going to buy that, or I'm going to have one of those. And I think it's misguided. I think at the end of the day, people, what we enjoy is the consumption of those assets. It's driving a Ferrari. It is having a day on a boat with friends, or whatever it might be.
Or driving a Lamborghini.
Driving a Lamborghini, yes.
As exactly. I enjoyed doing with your club.
And it's the driving that's the enjoyable part, not the actual, you know, yellow box itself. And so I think the sort of my advice to listeners would be, focus on the experience, not on the material asset.
And bringing it back to, in terms of the cost element, you know, is it something that we have to start budgeting for, you know, and you know, what are your thoughts on spending money on yourself?
Well, the good news is, once you realise that it's the experience that's going to give you the pleasure and not actually the asset, then of course, you know, you can look at the whole problem in a completely different way and say, well, I don't actually need to go and buy a Ferrari in order to have the pleasure of that can be derived from one. It's people say famously about boats that the day you your happiest days on the boat is the day you buy it and the day you sell it. And you know, these sort of expressions come out of, you know, are born out of reality. That at the end of the day, it's the experience on the boat and none of the ownership hassles and so on. So I'm you know, very much once you realise that, and obviously my whole business is geared around providing experiences to people, you realise, well, experiences are a lot cheaper, a lot less hassle, a lot less
than the ownership
than the actual owning of material assets.
And what are some of the experiences that we can access, for example, like, you know, through yourself? And we're living in such an indulgent city, where we're fortunate that these things are accessible. So give us a couple of examples of like what is accessible to us here if I'm having a day of celebrating my success.
So with Ecury 25 Lifestyle Club, for example, we have a collection of supercars and luxury yachts. And some of the things that we do are allow people to give people access to these Ferraris and Lamborghinis that they can take for a day, take for a weekend, drive around, pick up their friends, you know, go for a night out. We do chauffeur drive services in luxury limousines. Or what is increasingly more and more popular is to organise driving tours and events. So people might want to come on a boat for a boat trip around the Palm, but they might want to do that alongside a whole group of other people. So they join one of our boat trips and a sunset cruise, and they can socialise and network with other people. Similarly with a driving tour, we have these cars and we'll go off into the desert, take 6 cars, 12 people, and everyone gets a chance to drive all the different cars.
So there's just so many choices, and again, living here, it's just so accessible to us, which is great, and we should be taking advantage of such experiences.
Absolutely, and if you think about it, these sort of experiences are a fraction of the cost of acquiring the asset, but more importantly, you couldn't achieve that even if you bought the asset, because it's the social aspect that really gives you the endorsement and the pleasure. You know, being on a boat and people saying, oh, you know, it's my 50th birthday or it's our 10th wedding anniversary, you know, we're celebrating, and then everybody's celebrating with you. That is not something you can buy, it's something you can experience.
And I mean, even on the other side, we talk about luxury and yachts and supercars, and you know, there are so many examples of us celebrating our successes that actually don't need to cost any money.
Oh, for sure. It can be as simple as a pat on the back in some cases, right the way through. You know, there's a myriad of different scenarios. I mean, I was teaching my children painstakingly some of their maths last night, you know, because of the Easter holidays and so on, and I set them little tasks. So just if you did your maths, then you know you'll get an extra 5 minutes before you have to go to bed, and just that was just amazing, because they're like, give me another one, because they just wanted to build up to have an hour
5 minutes
before they go to bed. So you're absolutely right, and they got so much pleasure from it, and I was delighted because of course I was celebrating their success because they were getting better and better with their.
And you know, we talk a lot about like children and parenting, and how some of the values that we learn and the skill sets that we learn, you know, how do we instill them in our parenting and, you know, bringing up children. So I guess yours is a celebratory household.
Yeah, I think that's the point I made before about sort of the sort of accumulation of successes and small successes leading to big success. I think it's so important to especially with our children, to build up their confidence through success, for them to see themselves being successful in everything. You know, it really at that early stage, it really doesn't matter what they actually achieved. It's so much more important that they felt good about themselves and feel confident to tackle the next challenge.
And how do you, so that's in sort of the personal side and children. What about sort of in business? So in, you know, as CEO of your company, how do you bring that into sort of employees?
I think...
And is it important to do within the companies?
Well, I think in companies, again, you know, if you're managing your business well, then you're giving your staff a roadmap for career development, for enhancement, for promotion, for increased responsibility, more challenging work, and so on. And the way in which you are motivating people to achieve that is through this, if you like, series of tasks, challenges, which if they achieve, we celebrate that success and then move them on to the next one. So I think the whole concept spills through, you know, all aspects of life.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much. It's always so interesting to learn about, I think, what happens on the personal side within one's household, and how what we're learning is that, you know, it's the same skill sets that we need to build in our own companies and as well. So,
you know, I think one of my favourite sayings is I always say, you know, common sense is not that common. And actually most of the stuff that we talk about is actually, you know, it's common sense really. There's no rocket science to it. It's just a little bit of taking a step back from the day-to-day and being in the thick of it, and looking back and saying, well, actually, you know, what is important here? Is it going back to the children example again, is it really so important that my daughter got 8 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, or that she enjoyed what she did and she improved on what she did yesterday? You know, so people can lose that easily.
And your life motto?
Life motto. Well, I'm a great optimist, so I always like to see the find the silver lining in every cloud is probably what I'm most well known for.
Great. Thank you, Chirag. That was a really interesting topic. So let's move on now to our viewers' question for the week.
Hi, my name is Alex. How can we celebrate our successes?
So as we heard today, celebrating successes is first of all about really allowing yourself to, one, spend that money on yourself. And what we've also seen as well, it's not really about spending so much. It's really about the experience as opposed to buying or purchasing, whether it be a supercar or a super yacht. It's go and get that experience. So experience through celebrating life. So this week's project for the week is your celebration budget. Decide an amount and allocate a monthly budget for yourself. Now again, the 10% rule is a good rule of thumb. This is to spend on whatever you want in celebration and acknowledgement of your personal achievement. Put this money away in an envelope at home and title this envelope Celebration. At the start of the month, decide what the success is going to be and strive for that, promising yourself if you achieve it, you will spend that money on you. At the end of the month, take the envelope and go and enjoy something. If you didn't achieve your goal, then leave the money in there and set something bigger for next month. Thank you again for watching UAE Money Talk. Do let us know how you got on with this week's project, and don't forget to leave your comments at the section below. And we really look forward to seeing you again at next week's episode of UAE Money Talk.